Good.
Good? All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome. I am Megan Keefe. I'm the team lead for the business analysts that support the HR and benefits portion of our ConnectCarolina system. We're really happy to have you all here today. We have a pretty packed agenda. We sent out a survey, you may recall, after we did our HR Payroll 9.2 upgrade. So I'm going to go over the survey results, share some of those with you. I have a few other 9.2 related updates for you. I'm going to talk a little bit about our performance management pilot and let you know how that's going. Harvey Farrell from my team is going to talk about our new functionality for doing mass supervisor updates, which I understand folks are really excited about. Ellen's going to come up and talk about the user conference. Rosanda Hall from Employment and Staffing has joined us to share with you some upcoming changes that are going to be happening in our PeopleAdmin recruitment system. Jackie's going to do a little demo of the faculty portal for you. And then Ann and Corey are going to do some reminders and talk about things for the upcoming start of the semester, things to look out for HR actions. All right, so pretty packed agenda, so let's jump right into it. Before we get started, we do have two sort of new faces on our team. I say new because they have both been on our team before, and we're really thrilled to have them both back. So Jennifer Bartouche and Tanya Pope. Hi, everybody. We're really happy to have them join us. So now if you see their names on your tickets, you'll have a face to put with the name. So welcome back, Jen and Tanya. All right. So I'm going to cover the survey results, as I mentioned, talk about I'm going to give you an update on removing budget workflow from the ePARS for actions that don't actually have any change in budget. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the tentative go live for the finance 9.2 upgrade. All right, so survey feedback. I don't know if you guys can see the numbers from back there. I'm guessing no, it's pretty small font. So green is yes. Dark blue is I have not noticed. And light blue is no. So do you like the changes that have been made to the layout? Overwhelming majority said either yes or I did not notice. So that's pretty positive. Have the changes affected your user experience? Again, overwhelming majority said either they've made my experience better or I haven't noticed any change. I stand back here. Is that better? Sorry. During the last user group meeting, I was apparently standing on the wrong side of the microphone. So I'll try to stay here. Not move. Asking people if they've used the new org chart feature yet. About 60% said that they had, 40% said that they hadn't. And Ellen, do you remember the date that the survey went out? It seems like it's been 4 to 6 weeks, I think. Yeah. So this went out pretty soon after the upgrade. So I'm hoping that if we ask that question again today, the numbers would be a lot higher. So then we asked people, did you like the new org chart feature? Overwhelming majority, 82% said yes. Interesting results on this question, I thought, when we asked folks if they had tried downloading the org charts to Visio. It seems that pretty much half of our users actually don't have Visio. So that's something we may need to work with campus IT folks on, because I think you lose a lot of the functionality of being able to download the org chart if you don't have the software to be able to make changes, like adding vacant positions and stuff like that this time. So then we had some kind of free-form questions. We asked people what would they like to change about the org chart. A lot of people gave us feedback that they didn't like seeing peers in the view, especially in bigger units. It was kind of cluttering up the org chart. So we've actually removed peers already. That was a relatively easy configuration change for us to make. We have also removed secondary jobs for the time being. We have heard over and over again that adding vacant positions to the org chart would be super helpful. We completely agree. This is on Oracle's roadmap to release as a future enhancement, so I don't really have an estimate on when that change is going to be in place, but it's something they're aware of and are going to work on changing for us. Adding competency levels is something our team's going to take on as a future enhancement, as well as adding working titles and adding the position number. So lots of good feedback on the org chart, ways to make it better. Next, we asked about using the new funding feature. So this is the new funding data link that's on job and position information pages now. So asking how many people have used it, about 60% said they'd used it. 80% of the ones who had used it said they liked it. So that's great positive feedback. When we asked what would people change about the funding link, We didn't get a ton of feedback. We had one person say that they would like to include the funding source history. That's not something we're going to be able to do on that page. It's just much too complex to be able to make that work. But I did want to point out that that information is available via the salary funding report and InfoPort. And then somebody asked about seeing the full chart field string, and you can see the full chart field string. So we just wanted to point out how you do that. So if you click on the expanded mode tab when you're looking at the funding information, that'll show you the full chart field string and not just the combo code. Next question we asked is, are there things that you are doing outside of the system, either as an employee or a manager, that you'd like to be doing inside of the system? And the answers we got were very interestingly aligned with a lot of the projects that we've already identified as priorities that we want to tackle over the next couple of years. So I kind of wanted to speak particularly to the ones where we did have that overlap. So we had multiple mentions, like absolute number one thing in the responses was about getting performance evaluations into the system. So that's coming next year, and I'm going to talk about the pilot a little bit more later. People also asked for direct deposit authorization. So that is something that we have on the list as a future enhancement the payroll team's going to tackle, so that's going to be coming soon. An option to be able to run queries. This is actually something we have been working on for the last couple of months, and we are going to be releasing query dashboard to our HR reps relatively soon, definitely within the next 2 months, if not earlier. And then finally, better reporting options in InfoPort. So this, again, we have kind of multiple projects, I think, on the list for various ways we can improve InfoPort, improve your access to your data, improve your ability to run reports and be able to get the data you need to do your jobs more effectively. Some more things, automating department school division approvals that currently occur outside of the system. Let me just say, I just hired 2 people and I feel your pain on that. That's definitely something that we would like to improve in the future, as well as kind of standardizing how we do that across the university. Right now we have a lot of variation across the schools and divisions. Getting SHRA position descriptions in the system, that is absolutely something we want to do in the future. More search options to improve the ability to find EPARs. This is totally on our radar. We're really limited with what we can do with the current version of the EPARs that we're using, but we are looking at doing an EPAR upgrade in the future, probably sometime in 2019. And with the new version of the EPARs, we have a lot more flexibility in terms of how many search fields we can make available and how we can have them differ from one form to another instead of sharing a common set of search fields. And then finally, revisiting the student originator model. We feel your pain on this one too, and this is definitely something we'd like to look at tackling and changing in the future. So workflow routing that skips budget approvers in cases where budget approval is not needed. That is coming soon. So this is something that we had hoped to get in with our 9.2 upgrade back in March. We weren't able to get the testing done in time, so we have continued to test this post-upgrade. We are in the final phases of testing now, and we are hoping to release this functionality to you guys very soon. So what this will mean is that if you do a TIM approver change and don't change the funding or the salary amount, that it's going to skip level 1 and level 2 budget approvals. Any questions about that? The ability to print EPARs easily is actually something we're working on as well. There's some pretty cool new reporting capability, like in the 9.2 version of PeopleSoft, where we are able to do like prettier kind of reports. So there's some BI publisher functionality that our reporting team has started looking at, and we're able to do some pretty powerful things with that. And we're actually hoping that we're going to be able to create a BI publisher report that's going to do a nice, pretty printable version of the EPAR, kind of similar to what you used to be able to do in EPO Web. So that is coming soon as well. All right, so I just wanted to talk quickly about the finance new 9.2 upgrade, because this does have kind of, I feel like it has a big impact on our HR users. So they're currently talking about go live the weekend of December 7th to 9th. And for the finance 9.2 upgrade, similar to our upgrade back in March, it's going to be a whole weekend. So like they're taking the system down at 5 o'clock on Friday, and you're not going to be able to get in until sometime on Sunday. For us as HR users, I think this is particularly impactful because it's happening in December. As you guys all know, December is a very compressed schedule already for getting HR actions in ahead of payroll deadlines so that payroll can do all their processing before we all leave for the holidays. So I wanted to point out how this affects our lockout dates. So the Tuesday, December 11th is a double payroll lockout for both M06 and M12. So that's already a pretty compressed schedule in terms of getting actions in and fully approved. So this is going to mean that the weekend before that, which also happens to be that Friday is a biweekly payday, we're not going to be able to have anybody in the system approving actions. So you're really going to have to be proactive about trying to get your stuff done that week ahead of December 7th as much as possible. So please share that information with your coworkers and your peers. And then I also wanted to point out, so we have been running the EHRA auto term process on the 15th of the month. Because of the early payroll lockout in December, we're actually going to have to run it on Tuesday, December 11th on the morning of the lockout. So that's going to happen early as well. Any questions about that?
This is actually going back a little bit. There's a question from Michael. In what ways are you thinking about changing the student originator model?
Do I have to repeat that question?
I think they can hear me. I think they can hear me.
I'm going to let Vicki Bradley answer that question.
So the user model, we do have some glitches in ConnectCarolina that student originators can't do some actions. So we are going to have a project where we'll take a look at that, look at the access, who gets access, where the problems are. And we haven't determined yet what we'll be doing with that, but we are looking at it because we know that there's some issues there.
So I'll paraphrase what Vicki said. She knows that there's some glitches in the system where we need to really look at possibly changing access for student originators. I know in particular, feedback I get from the BAs on my team is that student originators don't seem to have access to the information that they need to make good decisions, and that oftentimes they make mistakes or errors because they don't have access to that information. So certainly one of the things we would look at is how can we give them better access to the information they need so that they can do their jobs better and not make the mistakes that we see them making. Anything else you guys want to add? Okay. Thank you. All right, so performance management pilot. So we have one pilot well underway and the second pilot is about to start. SHRA pilot started back in April. The SHRA pilot includes folks from all over campus, so we really wanted to kind of cast a broad net. We have faculty participating, we have folks from various schools, from VC Research, from facilities, from ITS, from OHR. I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple. School medicine. So a pretty broad group of folks participating. We're having ongoing feedback sessions throughout the year. So this is one of the things that I like the best about the new online process is it's much more iterative. Instead of just giving somebody a work plan and then coming back and evaluating them a year later, you kind of have like little ongoing checkpoints throughout the year. Where you get to, the manager and the employee get to give each other feedback back and forth. So it's a much more iterative process. And so we're having feedback sessions throughout the year as well to get feedback from the people who are using the system on what they like, what they don't like, what's working, what's not working. So a great example of that in our early feedback sessions, one of the biggest things we heard was that people did not like the fact that we were not sending notifications. So a manager completes the work plan. Originally, we had it set up so that we're relying on the manager to tell the employee that their work plan's available. And we got feedback that people didn't like that. They wanted to get a notification that said when it was available. So we have now turned email notifications on last week. And so we'll see. We've had one round of feedback sessions so far. Is that right, Corey?
We're about to complete the first round, yeah.
About to complete the first round of feedback sessions. Thank you. And our plan for releasing that to campus in general is for next March. And I'll just say, I love being able to do them online. It is so much nicer than the paper form. I'm really happy to have performance evaluations in the system. So we also have an EHRA pilot that's going to be starting very soon. I think within the next week or two is when we plan to do initial rollout for that. At the moment, this one's limited to Vice Chancellor for Workforce Strategy, Equity, and Engagement, and ITS, but I think we're exploring the option of including some additional folks from campus on the EHRA side as well. At the moment, the EHRA form is like a very pared down and simplified version of the SHRA form. And one of the reasons we focused on having HR and ITS be in the pilot is because with the recent changes around IT positions where they're converting to EHRA, we have lots of folks in our group and in ITS who currently have are starting to have people who are doing the same work who are SHRA and EHRA reporting to them. So I think we're going to get some interesting feedback on the differences between the two forms, and hopefully we can come up with a really good model for you guys to use next year going forward. So we have this performance management inbox. So if there are any things that you are really interested in seeing or any questions you have about the PM pilot, feel free to send them. And that is performance_management@unc.edu. I'm going to turn it over to Harvey, who's going to talk about the new Mass Supervisor Update.
Good morning. My name is Harvey Farrell, and it's my first time presenting, so be gentle, please. Joined the team, I think it was August of last year, and one of the projects I've been working on is shepherding through the Mass Supervisor Update development and testing and into production. So it went live, I think, in March, and now we're actually rolling out the service to you guys. Make sure the clicker works. Okay, all right. So it's finally here, and what the service is really is a service. It's meant to do the heavy lifting for where you have changes to supervisor or team approvers, with bulk updates you would like to do for that population. And so not for the case where you're doing a single supervisor change or a single approver change for an individual, but if you got 10 or more updates to the same supervisor or same team approver, this is a service that we're going to provide through the help of the Business Systems Help Desk and the BA team. And so the process is pretty simple. We got a form that you need to complete, get your HR level 2 approver, submit it to the help desk, and then they'll review it, make sure it's complete, and then forward the form onto our team. We'll actually do the update. So and this is the link to the form, which I think that's the CC info page. You can pick the link up there, and I think it was also a link included in the digest last time it went out. All right. So the next 2 slides, I'm just going to go through the features of the form, try to answer some particular questions about the form so we can get it clear. When you fill out, it's clear to us what you want accomplished. Okay, so the top of the form, we've got whether it's a supervisor update or a TIM approver update. Now, we can do both on the same form, provided that the population that you're targeting, in other words, the subordinates or the employees that are going to be updated, are all the same. Then you can do both the supervisor update and the TIM update on the same form. Otherwise, I request that you submit a form for the supervisor update and a form for the TIM update, just so we aren't confused about the populations of people to be updated. The effective dates that we're going to use for this, for supervisor changes, we're looking for the true date of the change for the supervisor. Now, the caveat to that, though, is our team won't be able to handle mid-stacks if you wait too late for the date change you're trying to do. So we'll take the form and do the updates we can and give it back to the help desk and say these 4 or 5 didn't update because they were mid-stacks, and those are going to ask you to submit EPARs like you currently do, and we will then, they'll run through the system, they'll get stuck, they'll come to our team, we'll work it out, but we're trying to encourage everybody to be proactive in the changes that you're making in a very timely manner, and that's why we're asking that of you. For TIM approvers, we're going to try to use the effective date, the current date for TIM approvers, because obviously if someone approved a month ago, then that wasn't a TIM approver, so we're going to try to make that the current date or as close to the current date as we can for the date for the TIM approvers. All right, any questions about what I've just said? Yes?
What does mid-stack mean?
Excellent. What does mid-stack mean was the question. It's when there's a transaction already in PeopleSoft that's already dated ahead of the date of the transaction you're putting in. So if we had a pay rate change that was effective on 7/1, and you're now doing a supervisor change of 6/15, that's going to get stuck. Currently, if you submit an EPAR and get stuck, our process will also get stuck. And so if you have those type, we're asking you to submit the EPAR just like you have done, and we'll work it out the way we currently address that. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, so for example, chairs change July 1.
Okay.
In a lot of the departments, and that comes with stipend at the same time. So
we're only addressing the change of the reporting relationship. So I'm assuming if you've got a stipend change, there's going to be an EPAR to address that individual that has the.
Yeah, but I'm in terms of the timing issue.
Okay.
Because if we're changing taking a stipend away from someone, adding a stipend into someone?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a timing issue with that?
Once again, the system will detect if it's a mid-stack. So if you're doing a change for a supervisor change of 7-1 as an example, that's 10 days ago. That type of change obviously likely will not interact with something that's already in the system. It won't be a mid-stack. If we get the change and you have a stipend to put in, it'll update where it should, and then we'll have to deal with the pay change as a part of an EPAR that would come in. Now, these are supervisor level changes, so it's not the individual addressing stipends per se. It's where you're saying that this person reports to this individual, and now we need to change the supervisor in that relationship. So that's really what we're talking about. Yeah, sure. Megan?
So I just add, the system, both the new process and the EPARs should handle multiple changes on the same effective date without a problem.
Yeah.
It's only a problem if you're trying to go back and do a mid-stack that's happening earlier. But if you're trying to do an EPAR that's on 7-1 and then do a mass supervisor update on 7-1, it should just sequence it automatically.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I had a sudden change in chairs on April 10th.
Okay.
Half my faculty and a lot of other people have had changes. Can I just use 7-2?
I will defer on that response to
about to jump off.
that question.
So we know that there's going to be a 7-1 increase. We don't know the details of it yet. We know there's probably going to be a 7-1 ARP. So please use 7-1. Because otherwise those later processes will be a problem. The difference, what Harvey was pointing out with the supervisor, if there really is a relationship change of a supervisor, we want to reflect when that supervisory change would have happened. But for stuff going forward, we're kind of in this holding a little bit if we can. So if you can hold off on any transactions for anybody, permanent staff. Oh, sorry, I've been told to walk closer to
They're
the
saying, we can't hear anything.
Do I have to start from the beginning?
Well, if you could. Catch the folks up what's going on.
So, sorry for those of you on the webinar. We know that there's going to be a 7-1 legislative increase. We know there's probably going to be a 7-1 ARP. So we know those transactions are going to have effective dates of 7-1. Wherever possible, if you can keep your transactions to dates on or before that, we appreciate it. It will save us tons of work on whenever we actually get to that point. So Harvey's point, though, about supervisors, if you find out today that, oh, that supervisory relationship changed 3 weeks ago, we still want that change for the 3 weeks ago date, because we'd like to really reflect when somebody's supervisor, who supervised somebody at any real time. The TIM approver, that history is less important because we need to know who's approving time now. But if you can date them for 7-1 until we get past these two things, we would be thrilled.
Excellent.
Does that make sense?
Thanks, Ann.
I'll put it down.
The next section on the form is where we're actually collecting information about the current supervisor and the new supervisor, the PID, the name. If the supervisor is in a position and the position is a part of the relationship, we need to know the position number of that supervisor. And the same thing for the new supervisor, the PID, the name, and that person's actually relationship is managed by position. We also like the position of that particular supervisor. TIM approvers, the same information, except position number is not really relevant. The way the system updates is just the PID of the TIM approver, both the new and, the old and the new, or the current and the new. A couple check boxes that sort of pertain to the next slide I'm going to go to. It's about targeting the population that we're going to update. The first checkbox says update all the persons that have that person as supervisor or TIM approver. All right, that's what that box is about. Now, this is our first time using this form, and I suspect when we get some of these in, we'll come back and look at that and see if that's safe to do or not safe to do. Because obviously we have many people with many appointments and they're all over the place, so we have to be very careful, make sure we're updating the right supervisor associated with the right jobs. But that's what that box is meant to do. So if you got 10 people reporting to the same supervisor, you all want them to report to the new supervisor, check that box, and you don't have to itemize the individuals, and we'll take care of it. The next checkbox goes sort of with the next screen, where we're asking you to itemize out if it's not everybody. In other words, these are the individuals that of the supervisor are moving, or these persons with this TIM approver need to change. We're asking you to itemize those individuals out on this form. And of course, like it says, left on the top slide, if this is not enough space, attach a spreadsheet with the same columns, and we will get that taken care of for you. All right? The next things for approvers, we're going to need HR level 2 approvers, and for that we need to know the department and the department that's impacted. So make sure you put the department number, a department name, and an HR level 2 approver who will approve the form before it goes to the help desk for us to act upon. All right? Now the appropriate signatures, I think that's about it for the form that I think I need to cover. Yes, question?
Can you type inside this form, or do you have to print it off, fill it out?
You can type in.
Repeat the question.
Oh, can you type inside the form?
Yes.
Yes, you can type inside the form. The only boxes you can't type in are the hard signatures for the HR approver. Everything else you can type in. All of it is a keyable form. Mm-hmm. Yes, question?
Harvey, is there a minimum number of changes to use this process versus using it systematically?
We're saying 10. Oh, yeah. Is there a minimum number of persons that we will do this service for? And so that number is currently set at 10. So if you got 5, you're still on your own. 8, still on your own. You're above 10, give us a shot. Yes.
So Vicki had a question that I thought other people might have too, so I just wanted to share it. So even though it doesn't explicitly state it on the form, you can use this to do any kind of supervisor update, regardless of whether it's supervisor ID or reports due. We can handle both of those.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, any other questions? Just last thing to point out, I think Ann sort of alluded to it, around timing. Obviously, payroll update, payroll lockouts, things like that. We're going to hold the forms. Obviously, we can't run this process while payroll lockout is taking place. As we approach 7/1 and changes that are coming in, we may find ourselves holding forms to make sure that the other business processes that need to take place actually do take place, and we won't interfere with that before we actually process the forms. So once we complete our process, we're going to turn it back to the help desk. The help desk will contact you with letting you know how well we did in updates, and if you have any EPARs that you need to complete that we couldn't actually take care of as a part of the process. Yes?
Is this something that down the line you're hoping that we'll be able to do in Connect Carolina instead of the form?
I know that's the desire that we'd like to have too. Oh, sorry, yeah. The question, thank you. The question was, can this process be rolled out to the user community and not actually have to send to the help desk to come to the BA team? Initial design concepts were supporting that plan, but right now there's just so many things that can happen with transactions that we felt we should probably handle this on the inside first to see how all that works out. Anytime you submit EPARs, most of them fly right through, but often there's issues that we need to take a look at and sort out. And doing these in mass, you're going to get an error report that says, well, these 5 transactions blew up for this particular reason. And right now we're not sure that that's something we want to have out there. So we like to try it inside first. Probably put some more rules around security, like which persons can you pull up, what person can you see, things like that have to actually be embedded in the application to make sure before we can actually roll it out further like that. Mm-hmm. Yes?
Question came in, what will the turnaround time be for this?
Okay, the process, if everything is clean, in other words, if I wanted to update 50 individuals, the system update, if everything was clean, takes about 2 minutes. It's about 2 minutes to run through 50 people. But that said, we like to do a lot of research on the form, make sure we're updating the right populations. We're probably running our test system first to make sure that no unexpected errors kick out. And so I suspect in the course of a week, we should be able to turn a form around would be my best guess, because we're factoring in with all the other requests that come in through the help desk. And so it should be fairly timely. And if it's not, we'll sort of respond back saying, there'll be some delay for whatever business purpose that might be. Okay. All right, with that, I'll pass it on to Helen.
How many buttons are on this thing?
Got
it. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm just going to take a couple minutes to talk about the Connect Carolina User Conference. Now, the last time we had one of these was spring of 2015, pretty soon after we went live. How many people were here then and attended? Super. Okay. So for those of you who weren't here, it's an opportunity for all of the users of Connect Carolina, Infoport, and university systems to kind of get engaged with each other and learn a little bit more in depth about specific targeted areas. So this whole thing is being driven by a planning committee this time with track chairs. Megan is the track chair for HR. And so she'll be the one who kind of guides through the types of sessions that'll be offered. But that's all dependent upon what kind of input we get from the community. What do you want to know? How do you want to learn it? You know, would you like to meet just as a group and have a panel discussion? Would you like a presentation on something? Do you want it to be advanced level, entry level? All of those kinds of things we're taking into consideration. And a lot of this stuff is just sharing tips and tricks. You guys are the experts. You're the boots on the ground, the hands on the keyboard. So you all have something to teach the other people here. And we're really hoping that some of you will be, you know, excited to get in there and participate as presenters in one way, shape, or form. So here are the down low details. It's on Thursday, October 18th. We sent a save the date out last month. So hopefully you got that and you blocked your calendar. It's 8:30 to 4:30. It's going to be at the Student Union, which I always call the Frank Porter Graham Student Union, but other people tell me that that's very confusing for other people who think it's the thing off of Smith Level Road. So it's at the Student Union right around the corner. 2015, I think we had 25 sessions. We're close to doubling that. That's the hope here. We've got 10 classrooms and then workshop areas in some surrounding buildings. So we're hoping to, to really give you an opportunity, no matter what track you're with, HR, finance, research, there'll be sessions for you. Lunch is provided. It's no cost. And this year we're doing an event app, which I'll talk to you about a little bit in a couple of slides here. So the session tracks: finance, HR, payroll, student administration, research, and reporting. The formats: presentations, panel discussions, and workshops, or whatever else unique way of, getting information or sharing information you guys come up with. There's talk of like birds of a feather session, which is basically not really, it's not presenter driven. You just get all like-minded people who want to learn about a specific topic in a room so they can share ideas and talk. So that's another type of session that we'll probably be offering. This user conference webpage should be live tomorrow. And right in the middle here, under where it says Making Connections, and you're going to see an orange button that says Call for Proposals. Another thing before I talk about Call for Proposals is up at the top, on the top menu, the Planning Committee is there. As I said, this is all being driven by campus planning committee members, of which I see several in this room. Raise your hand if you're on the Planning Committee. So Robin is, Rebecca is, Jackie is, Megan is, Teresa is. So, and all of the rest of them, I think there are 32 of them. If you click on that planning committee link, and those are great resources to go to if you've got an idea for a proposal or something you want to share, or you want to be a presenter, but you really would like some guidance, go to your track chair or anyone else that's around there. When you're going to click on the Call for Proposals button, it's going to take you to a submission page, but it's also going to give you a lot of helpful hints about how to write a description, how many other presenters are going to be in there. So this is the type of information that we'll be asking for. Identify the track that the session is related to, description, co-presenters. And the timeline is July 11th through August 6th. At that time, then the planning committee itself will take a look at all the proposals and say, yep, we're going to accept all of them, or we might, finesse this one a little bit or combine. But at any rate, the notifications will go out the week of August 6th. And then it's another month after that where we were going to ask to have your presentations in there. And the reason is we really want to see the presentations in as close to final form as they can be, so that we can get the abstracts that everybody's going to read as they register right. And so it takes a little time, I think, for people to go through their iterations and say, this is the message I want to give, and here's the audience. So presentations due the 12th, and of course the conference is the 18th. And really cool thing we're doing is this event app. So when registration opens in September, you can go to the website, you can click on register, and it will, you register for all the sessions, it'll all be there, but you'll also be prompted to download this event app. Your email, none of your information that you put in there is ever going to be shared with anybody else, even though this is a third-party vendor application. But the value you're going to get on the day of is going to be, really, I think you're going to really like it, because you're going to be able to get push notifications. You're going to be able to know if a session had to change somewhere. You'll be able to look at the presenter profiles, descriptions of the session, maps of where your particular session's being held. And this has kind of become the standard, I think, at a lot of conferences. So we just wanted to jump on that bandwagon. Oh, that's it. Questions?
So I think it's wonderful that there's this opportunity to have lots and lots and more
Right.
presentations. What worries me, you mentioned 5 tracks. I'm on at least 4 of those tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So will there be repeat presentations?
That's a great question. The question was, if you've got multiple tracks that you're interested in attending sessions, will there be repeat sessions? And the answer is yes. So if we have opportunities to maybe have 46 sessions, some of those are going to be repeats. And part of the planning committee's charge right now is to try and figure out how to record sessions too. What's the most effective way to record sessions? So we're going to try and accommodate all those, because you're right, you're not the only one in that boat who wants to attend sessions from different tracks. Any other questions, Rebecca? We good? October 18th. See you there.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Rosanda Hall, and I know several of you. But I'm here to talk to you about a new rollout of what our PeopleAdmin homepage is going to look like. How many people use PeopleAdmin? And are happy about it? Yay, we love PeopleAdmin. Where'd Marie go? Love it. So I'm just here to tell you there's going to be a new look to it. The functionality is not going to change a lot. Just a new, more modern look. So for those of you who are used to using PeopleAdmin, this is what the current homepage looks like. Look familiar? Yes. So we have our inbox here. We have a watch list of positions we want to see what's going on. We have on the right shortcuts and some links. And at the very top, which I don't know if you can see, there's a pointer, I think, but it says PeopleAdmin, and then there's a drop down for applicant tracking. That's over on the right. And that's pretty much what it looks like. You got some tabs across the top, but now you're going to have a more modern look. Oh. So it really just looks a little more modern. There's some extra features that they've added, but the functionality, again, will stay basically the same. Over to the left, you have a new search option for searching your inbox for those who have a lot of postings. And you can filter your inbox as well. A cool thing right here is that in your inbox, you have your postings and their current state. Now they've added a column that includes the number of days in that current state. So if you're keeping track of your postings and where they're at and how long they're taking, you will be able to see that. That's a cool thing. And on the right, there's a drop down now that says shortcuts. So your shortcuts that were in a list are not going to be in the list. We'll look at that in a second. And way over to the left, which you will not be able to see, I don't think, way up there is what's called, that circle that says hire. That used to be what was called applicant tracking. So now, PeopleAdmin has changed the term applicant tracking to hire, H-I-R-E. So when you see hire, think applicant tracking. Okay, everybody good with that? I mean, I know it's just a new branding that PeopleAdmin is rolling out. And I'll show you the drop down in just a second. Your inbox will still include your watch list, but one of the cool new features in the watch list is the ability and a button to unwatch postings. So for those who have a gabillion postings that they've decided that they thought they wanted to watch, and now they realize, well, I really don't need all these to watch, you can select them one at a time or in bulk. You can select several and hit the button for unwatch. So that's cool. We used to get a lot of questions about, how do I unwatch a posting? That's an easy way to do that. Now, some of the bigger changes that I've noted with this new enhancement is on the shortcuts where it was a list, now it's a drop down. I think part of that was to use the real estate for something else, which I'll show you in a second. And a big change with the shortcuts, since they're not going to be there for you, you'll have to create your own. That is actually a new feature, something they hope you'll be able to manage your own shortcuts, create the shortcuts that you want, name them however you want to name them. And so for several of you who remember create SHRA perm postings or temp postings or faculty or EHRA non-faculty, you'll have to create each of those yourself. So when you go under create posting, under the breadcrumbs or next to the breadcrumbs, there'll be a star. The star will create the shortcut for you. And then they'll appear on the list under the dropdown, and there'll be an option to manage your shortcuts. So if you decide you never use that shortcut, you can delete it, you can reorder them, you can rename them. So that is a new feature, and one of the bigger deals to me that you'll have to get, you're not going to see your shortcuts, you got to create them yourself. And over on the left, when I mentioned hire, the drop down for applicant tracking was on the right. It's going to be over on the left under hire. So think applicant tracking, hire. So you can click that over on the left. And one of the bigger deals, that real estate they probably needed from the shortcuts, is depending on your role, you might now see some widgets, some new widgets or visualizations. And these are analytics that will appear depending on your role. So if you're in the division and you might have certain search committees that you're chairing or certain things that you manage in a higher level, you might see widgets that appear and that will give you information on search committees for your division. You might see filled postings or open postings for you. Some people, depending on your role and your access, will only see my links. You won't necessarily see those. And some of these will look totally different. I have a handout that I'll leave on the back page for some of you who just want to get more detail today, but a communication will be going out with this information and some handouts on the detail about how to create shortcuts with these widgets, who will have access to the widgets, and so on. Any questions? Hi, Teresa.
Did I hear you say that the My Links, which includes the link to the user documentation, is going to remain? Or?
My links should remain. Okay. It's the shortcuts that you have to create. And the question was, will my links still be there with this new enhancement? And yes, my links should still remain there. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Hello. Hello. All right. For those of you I don't know, I'm Jackie Treschel. I'm on the change management team. Quick show of hands for those in the room. How many of you work with faculty? Okay. How many of you have heard of the faculty portal? Okay, that's not as many as I hoped. But anyway, the faculty portal is a new homepage in Connect Carolina for faculty. So it is currently specific to faculty. If you are HR or finance or another type of employee at the university, you don't have the faculty portal. It looks the same way it always did. There are about 4,000 faculty that currently have access to it. So we're actually talking about it today so that if a faculty member comes to you and says, I logged into Connect Carolina and there's this screen and I don't know what it is, you know a little bit more about what it is. So I'm going to go a little bit quick because, again, this isn't something that you are able to access, but just to kind of give you the lay of the land and what that looks like. The biggest thing is that those blue buttons on the left side of Connect Carolina, where self-service is, they are not going away. They just look a little bit different. So they are the exact same as you see today in the faculty portal. They go to the same places. There is a space at the bottom that's called status and notifications, and that we are using like the messages that we put on the portal. You know, when there's an issue with the system or like ePro catalogs are down, we put a note on there. These notifications are specific to faculty though. So they don't necessarily care that ePro is down or that, you know, there's EPAR issues, that sort of thing. So these are system outages and other messages that faculty specifically would care about. So again, just to orient you, so the blue buttons now are gray and they're over on that left side, same place they are now. And the status and notifications are on that bottom left. The center section allows them to access their teaching and research resources in fewer clicks. So the top section is their research projects. So this links to the PI dashboard. How many people have heard PI dashboard? Okay, that works. So the PI dashboard is an info port. So it's a snapshot of their grant information that goes through OSR, which is the Office of Sponsored Research. Underneath that is teaching. They can look at if they have pending incompletes in their classes. And with 2 clicks, they can see their course information. So they can get a roster or do their the grade roster, see a roster with pictures. In Connect Carolina, the way it was before, I think it was 4 or 5 clicks to get to that screen that they can do in 2. And then under that is a personal folder, which has their salary sources that just is letting them know the chart field strings that fund their salary. And there is, they can collapse it if they don't want to see it. That's what the arrow is. And if the personal faculty documents, if they want to upload things like their CV or publications, that sort of thing, so that they can have access to it, that's where they would do it there, and it stores it in Connect Carolina. And that is just for them to use. And then over on the far right, the inbox, anybody that's an approver that has things that they need to approve, they would have the inbox, and it shows similar to the way it does that you see now in Connect Carolina. There's a help and support link. These are some of the documents that are under there to just, you know, if they need help navigating in Connect Carolina. And then there's a report list. The only report that's currently on there is an HR report. It is upcoming employee terminations. So that generates for them, and they can click it there and take a look at that report. The last thing is, one thing that went away with the faculty portal is main menu. So if you use main menu and breadcrumbs to get where you're going, and it turned out there were a number of faculty members that used that option as well. So main menu goes away with this look of the portal, and it's replaced by Navigator, which is this compass up in the right-hand corner. And so it works very similar to the way main menu did. You click the compass, you click Navigator, you click your option. The big difference is you don't see the breadcrumbs across the top when you do that. And so as I mentioned, this just is, you know, it's an entry page for them. The rest of Connect Carolina still looks the same. When they go in there, it still goes to the same pages. So if you get questions about something after the faculty portal, it still looks the same as what you see today. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Does the Navigator solve the faculty advisor problem?
The question was, does the Navigator solve the faculty advisor problem? Yes. because they were going through main menu to get to, yes. So all of their access remains the same, and they use the same options that they did in main menu with Navigator. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Will all faculty receive any communication regarding these changes?
Yes. So the question was, will all faculty receive a communication regarding the changes? They have. We rolled it out slowly. It went out in 4 different groups. Currently, it's gone out to all the schools and divisions at this point that have faculty. Not all faculty have it at this point, though. For various reasons, some of them don't have it, but everybody, we have been notifying them before it gets turned on in the system for them. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
The employees terminating report, is that strictly the employees in their department number, or that report to them, or what is the qualification to be listed in that?
Okay.
That report?
So the question was, and I'm going to paraphrase, who shows up in the employee terminations report? Is it department or people that they supervise? And Megan's walking up here, thank God. I don't know the answer.
It's anybody they supervise, so it's anybody who reports to them. And I'll just add, that's going to be one of the first reports that we include in the HR rep dashboard as well. So we're hoping to broaden access to that report.
Great. Thank you, Megan. Any other questions? All right, awesome. So Corey and Ann.
Thank you. So Ann and I have a hodgepodge of reminders to go through with you all this morning. How many of you use the UNC Employee Information link in the HR Work Center? I see several of you do. So all of our HR users that have access to the Work Center have the ability to go to the UNC Employee Information page and get a lot of, a wealth of information about employees here at UNC, active and inactive. You can see all of their records. It doesn't apply security, so you can see it across the university. You can see it by EMPL record. You can see their FTE, expected end date, their HR and payroll status. So don't forget about this link and use it. I would recommend using it before you take any action on your employees, just to see what their current status is. When you are entering EPAR data, you want to make sure that you always enter it from top to bottom. And if there are multiple columns, enter all the fields on the left first and then move to the right. This is especially important for our higher EPARs and our position EPARs. When you enter in position EPARs, if you start on the right and then you enter on the left, then data can get out of sync and cause problems in the system. And with hires, you can encounter invalid values, or you could inadvertently change someone's status from primary to secondary. So you know that edit existing job checkbox at the bottom of the hire EPAR? If you're going to check it, make sure that's the last thing you check on that page before you move to the next page. Positions should always have a one-to-one relationship. Well, I'll say for SHRA, they should always have a one-to-one relationship, meaning one position to one person. Now that person can have multiple positions, but if it's SHRA, it should be one-to-one. This is important for TIM purposes. For EHRA, you can have multiple headcount, though we wouldn't recommend it because there's so many things that have to be shared across those incumbents that if you change one thing, let's say you change FTE or you change funding, then it changes it for everyone. So it's probably easier to just create one position for one person across the board. And on that position EPAR, there is a headcount field and it is open and you can change that number, but we ask that you don't. And hopefully with our GT updates, we'll maybe lock that down. Terminations. Don't forget, the effective date of the termination is always the first day the person's no longer on payroll. Always check that last day worked to make sure that it's displaying the correct date there. Otherwise, they may get underpaid. You will be unable to enter a termination effective date that is greater than the expected job end date on the person's record. So go look at the employee information screen, look what the expected end date is. If you need to adjust it, do that before you submit the termination action. And if somebody has multiple jobs, they're leaving all of their jobs at UNC, when possible, please submit terminations for those secondary jobs first so routing works properly. And if you want to see if they have secondary jobs, you can, again, go to the UNC Employee Information page and submit those terms first. If it's going to cause an overpayment, we want to make sure that you get the primary job term, but when you can, do the secondary jobs first. As Anne mentioned earlier, with the LI and ARP coming up in preparation, we do ask, if possible, please refrain from submitting any actions that have effective dates greater than 7/1. 7/1 is fine because things will stack on top, but anything greater than 7/1, if possible, please hold on until after we get the load in. And while payroll and the HRBAs try and make sure those payroll schedules that we release prior or at the beginning of each year are accurate and have the correct dates, there are things that come up that may change our dates, like 9/2 implementations or the end of the fiscal year. So we do make updates if those dates change on the payroll website and the HR payroll deadlines calendar, the Outlook calendar that's online. And we try and communicate that out as well. And we'll look to, if that happens again in the future, to put it up on the portal and do some additional communication around that. So, Anne? I'm sorry if I rushed through that. I know we only have a few minutes left.
Does anybody have any questions for Corey?
Yeah.
Oh.
On the previous page, the anticipation of the LI/ARP, when you are asking not to submit actions greater than 7/1, you mean not to originate actions with a date greater, or can they originate and sit in someone's queue?
That's a great question. So the question is it just not originate, or can you submit the action and just let it sit in someone's queue? The preference is to not even originate it, because once you start that action, it's going to pull in everything. And depending on the situation, the compensation may be different once that LI or ARP goes in. And so I would refrain from even starting the action.
You may undo the effects of the LI.
Yes, especially if you check that I do not wish to update compensation or funding. It does hold on to that in the background and could overwrite the changes. Yeah, good question.
Any other questions for Corey?
Rebecca has one.
Will we be notified when we can submit EPARs for dates after 7/1 for permanent employees?
Yes, we can make sure that we notify. We can put a message up on the portal or send a communication out. Yep.
Any other questions? Oh, one in the back.
So I have a question about the change employment status EPAR. When you return someone from leave, it always still notes that as a term, DRLET, I think.
So
the question is, when you submit a change employment status EPAR and it's returning someone from leave, that it reflects it's a term ret leave, in the short description of the EPAR. It's just a mix of the different things that the EPAR does. So it does terminations, it does leave actions, and it does return from leave actions. So it's just our
the name of the
abbreviation.
form.
Yeah, yeah. Good question. Yeah.
Any others? Okay, so last but not least, you're going to get a whole bunch of energy because we got to go fast. So reminders, expected end dates. If you are not running your expected end date report every day, shame on you, because I guarantee that you're going to find somebody after the fact. Please take advantage of this resource. This is, of all the things you have as a resource, this is probably our number one, especially if you process students. So run it often, daily. Clearing the filter. For those of you that have students who might have primary, secondary jobs, if you go in, it starts out at the primary job only. When you clear the filter, you're going to still see a P in there, which is really confusing. It's just the name of the filter. But clear it so you're going to see all the jobs that student has, especially if they are yours. And then thinking about what is the expected end date? It's the next date that something needs to happen. So it could be a semester start, a semester end, their termination date. We are still seeing people use, for example, somebody who is going to leave the university and stop being paid 7/1. We're still seeing EPARs come through with expected end dates of 6/30. That's not going to work because when you go to terminate them, it's going to say, oh, I can't go past 6/30. All right, I'll use 6/30. We shorted them a day of pay, so we don't want to do that. So if your expected end date is going to be the first day of classes, so they've been working for the summer, so on August, you want to make it August 21, they're going to get paid only through, well, assuming they're paid, through the 20th. If they don't return, so you've made an expected end date of the 21st. Maybe you don't know at the beginning of the summer what they're going to do. If they don't return, their term date is going to be effective 8/21. If they're not going to work in the fall, you're going to put them on short work break, effective 8/21. If the student is going to work in some new capacity, you're going to do an expected end date change and move them out to whatever it is, and return them from work break if needed. Keep in mind, we always encourage you to not click the I don't want to see compensation. You always want to review compensation, because in case somebody else has done a transaction, you may not remember what the compensation is. And that page that Corey mentioned does not show compensation. Oops. Any questions on expected end date? I feel like I harp this to you all the time, and I apologize, but this is where we see our most problems. For EHRE auto terms, we love this process. Hopefully you will as well. So it's running on the 15th of the month. The only exception is going to be if we're in payroll lockout. So we were last month, I believe, and we mentioned that we will be again in December. And it looks for all EHRA students who have an expected end date in that month. The SHRA one is still running every day. So if a person has both, the SHRA one took care of themselves, the EHRA one will. And it's looking for any expected end date that is from the first to the last day of that month, and it is going to process that that termination. So occasionally it does one that you were kind of thinking, I really wasn't sure what was going to happen to them. Oh, they are coming back. Please don't rehire them. If you find out they were auto-termed and they shouldn't have been, put in a help desk ticket and we will back out the auto-term. However, we're not going to back out auto-terms from 3 months ago. So we're looking for timely type of things. We don't like the termination rehire because it changes, it inflates our rate of hire actions. It really isn't another hire, we missed it. And in the meantime, if we do have to back something out, that employee may have been over or underpaid depending on what your next action is going to be. You will need to note that in the ticket that you submit.
Can you repeat that?
Depending on what you use for your, somebody got auto-termed, sorry, the question was repeated. Somebody was auto-termed and you put in a ticket to have it backed out. You need to think about what your next action is. So maybe you're really planning to change their date to earlier than that. If you don't realize the back out until after payroll has run, they got overpaid. Or likewise, there could be an underpayment circumstance. You'll want to note that in the ticket. We generally do check that, but I think it's really a good way to just, when we see the word pay in there, we're going to pay a little bit more attention. It's going to rise to the top of the list. Does that answer that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Reminders about short work break. For those of you that have students who were on short work break this summer, you're going to want to return them or do whatever. You may have students who worked this summer but are taking the fall off. You're going to want to place them on short work break. Again, we remind you, please don't click the I don't want to see compensation. Always look at it when you're doing a return from short work break so that you know. A lot of times we have people who are putting people on short work break and bringing their salary down to 0, which isn't necessary, but if you choose. But then when you return them, you better make sure you put salary on or you've returned them, but they're still not going to get paid. As the mother of students, their pay is very important. I have a question in the back.
Yes, what constitutes a short work break?
That's a great question. What constitutes a short work break? I think the important word in there is short. So we like to think of it as a semester, an in-between semester, or possibly a year. Anything more than that is no longer a short work break. So if you have a student who is taking a year to go find themselves and then they're coming back, that would be a reasonable short work break. Or you've put somebody on short work break for this semester because they're not going to work this semester, but you think they're going to come back in the spring. In the spring, they say, oh, no, I don't want to work this semester either. At that point, it's time to stop, term them. And then if they do come back the following year, then you would rehire them, go through the I-9 process and all of that. It is not intended to cover their 4-year student status. And then last reminder, the stipend calculator, I don't know how many of you already use it. I encourage you to, you can either, it is your friend, and you can either download it. It's just an Excel spreadsheet. What I really like about it is you know some of the factors and it will calculate the others. So if you know the dates and what their annual is, it'll give you the monthly. If you know the monthly and the dates, it will give you the annual. So you can kind of work it. And the math is pretty spot on. So I encourage you to do it. I tend to do it longhand, and I'm usually off a little bit. I make mistakes. Any questions on those? Yes, question.
I think the most recent stipend calculator that was posted had limited decimals in it, which occasionally occurred with a penny short, which left us short a few cents of the minimal.
So the question was that there's a new version out there that has changed how many precision points of the decimals. I haven't seen that. By the way, it's on the graduate school's website. You can probably go to unc.edu and put in search for stipend calculator. I will tell you that payroll calculates out to 6 decimal points of precision. I don't know what the calculator is doing.
Okay, so the last version I used was 2, and in a few situations I ended up like 4 cents short of the semester.
And sometimes that's going to happen because of precision. There are going to be times, and my feeling is that if that's the case, bump it up a penny. I mean, unless you're limited by a grant that's not going to allow it, I think that we should never short people's salary.
Okay, so that was, you said 6 digits, and I just wanted to let folks know that
Thank you.
had to add a penny.
If you have to add a penny to the broader your date range, the more your precision becomes important.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
And I have
Yes.
a reminder I would like to add it on hand.
Okay, we have a ad hoc reminder.
We are still seeing a number of routing issues when we are working with approvals through the help desk where we're having to do manual approvals. So I would just ask you to think about this time of the year where people are taking vacation and it may affect your approval routing, to make sure that you have that in place, because we do have those edits in the system that you cannot approve an action that you originated or that you. So keep that in mind, if you will, because that can delay processing on your actions. We have had occasions where actions have missed payroll because we have to reach out to every approver in the track when we have one that's stuck to get that to move through the system, and that sometimes takes time. So just a reminder on your routing to make sure you're getting your actions done timely, especially with some of these deadlines we have coming up.
And I would say that's going to be really true for December as
Right.
well. So thank you, Teresa. Good
Thank you.
reminder. And then the last thing is we are looking for ideas for future topics. We can always come and talk to you about the stuff we talk about, but we would love to hear from you. So unlike the user conference where you're going to get expanded, we like the 3 and 4 minute topics that we can give you quick hits, things you want to do. So if you have any now, shout them out. And if you think of them on your way back to your office, feel free to email either Corey or myself, and we would love to add it to next user group's agenda. Anybody have any right now?
I would say just like the expected end date report, like how to verify that we have access to that. And if we've requested access, I mean, sometimes it's kind of ambiguous, like we think that's in our rules and we request access and then we don't get it for a while. And so how do we verify it? When we have it or if we're eligible to get it.
Corey, did you take note of that?
Yes.
Thank you.
That makes sense.
Yep. And if you think of any, please let us know. Just for those of you, I did notice a lot of people were taking notes, which we love, but this is available
In a couple days.
in a couple of days. This will be up on the CC info site, as well as all the old ones. And if you go and look for them, you'll see there's 2. There's a sort of the flat version where you can just see what the topics were. And then there's the whole webinar, and you could listen to this again if you really wanted to. Oh, come on, I know you want to. And Megan has something?
Reminder that Rosanna has handouts in the back of the room for the PeopleAdmin changes, so please grab one on your way out.
And the next meeting is October 2nd. Be there or be square. Thank you all.